Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR2 video. So today I was browsing Facebook and I saw a question about live racing. What's the best car for live racing? Well, in my opinion, this game has plenty of options for live racing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bunch of them right now with various cars in the game, kind of going down the various makes alphabetically and then jumping to some of the cars that are from Flash or from events in the past. I actually never bought a Flash car, so I shouldn't say Flash, it's just the regular events. Right here, we're going to start with the Aston Martin brand using the Vulcan. Vulcan's a great car. Now, the problem with live and finding opponents is that currently I cannot match with many iOS players, so I get a lot of does not connect when I try to race. I always tune my cars to win, so the fact that, I can't get an opponent is a problem because if I don't swap and I'm just trying to win and I can't get an opponent to race, it kind of kills the joy for making points. Now, live is the best way and the quickest way to get RP points. Nothing you can do on the map would outperform what you can get in live. High numbers come from cars like tier 5 cars. Oh, okay, this guy's re-challenging me. I'm going to take another run. High RP points come from tier 5 cars because they have higher PP and higher Evo. Usually you want to shoot for something with over 600 PP and over 1,000 Evo to get a relatively decent run out of the car. Now, the Aston Martin here is a good car. It accelerates hard at the end, tend to chase opponents down and win that way. This particular one's running about 1.5 tenths, maybe 2 tenths under dyno, depending on how I drive it. Again, pretty effective in this lobby. So that is the Aston Martin, which incidentally has a few decent cars in the brand. Number two, Audi. Now, I'll be upfront and tell you this Audi VRS I had to downtune quite a bit because it's already been bumped some. And I took it back in live to test run before this recording, and it was getting its behind handed to it. So I've aggressively downtuned it a bit for this run. But the bottom line is the Audis, both this one and the regular RAV10, can be very effective in live as long as I can actually find an opponent to race. Now, I can see those two guys are racing their own accounts. So I'm just going to have to go for Bustin' G here. Bustin' G's is with a 599 GTO. Unless it's tuned a certain way, those cars are not highly competitive in live. So even though I'm bumped, I should have the ability to eke out a win here with my Vorsteiner. Launch perfect. Nitrous, and off I go. Now I'm keeping well ahead, and if I am ahead, I'm going to downshift. Not quite enough of a downshift. Probably still ran way under what my dyno says. I'm dynoing at about 10.0 and I'm running a 9694. So that's a little bit too much and could cause problems down the line. But that there was Audi. Now this is one of my favorite live racers, the Bach Mono. Very few upgrades, although it is close to max. I have over 1,200 miles on it, down tuned and winning in live. And this car has not been bumped because when it comes to low PP, high Evo cars, I noticed that even though you're winning, as long as you're not running it crazy fast and well under dyno, the amount of wins really doesn't affect your ability to continue to keep the car in a competitive lobby. This lobby, you do face some tier 4s because the car is actually dynoing right around a 13.0, 12.9 range. Now that's something to talk about too, but not really so much the purpose of this video. But when you set up your car, you want to set it up close to solid numbers. 12.0, 11.0, 10.0, 9.0. These are all nice areas to be. If your dyno is a 9.3, you run little under 9.0 or right around it, you'll find the car to be a lot more competitive than a car that dynos say 12.9 and can barely run 12.8s, because that lobby could have a lot of cars running 12.7s and some even in the 12.6s. So figure every bracket is about a 3/10 gap, and then every lobby within the bracket, you can, depending on how busy the lobby, or I should say the bracket is, you could have 3 or 4 lobbies you can enter into that all run within that range. So the bracket is the part that you don't want to break out of, but the lobbies really doesn't matter too much as long as it's not outside of that bracket. You could sometimes bump between 3 to 4 different lobbies and still get the same time range opponents. So here I ran a 13.0 on a 13.2 against the opponent, ran a 13.2. 1273 RPs, not bad considering this car is a relatively low PP point, although it does have decent Evo. So with any extra bonuses, it would actually be quite good. Camaro ZL1 1LE. This is another car that is quite good in live. Chevy comes with quite a few cars that are good. The Under Pressure, the 1LE, also the as I recently did a video on the C10 Tiffany, which isn't as good for live, but certainly not a terrible car. All can be of use. And the Quinton brother Camaro runs much like the HS Camaro, so you have almost 3, 4, if not more options in the Chevy brand if you want to do live. And that includes the Corvette ZR1, which isn't as aggressively able to beat dyno, but if you tune it to the proper lobby, on the faster end of a lobby, like say 10.0 something or 10.1, but running a 9.9s or so, it is competitive. I'm having a little bit of a hard time here getting an opponent. There we go, another 1LE. I'm going to go ahead and raise him. Now this comes down to, is my tune a little bit more aggressively competitive than his in this lobby? You know, considering it's the same car, the variables now comes down to upgrade and tune, and also not screwing up the launch. Well, I screwed up a little bit there. This is going to be a little bit closer than I would like. He may even pull past me at the end here. Whew, okay. All right, I had enough of a margin to do a little downshift and still get my win out of this race. Oh, looks like a re-challenge coming. Okay, let's do that again. Keeping the races close sometimes will get your opponents to immediately re-challenge you because they feel that it was a close enough race and they may be able to beat you. Here, what I just did there was a 0 RPM drop. What happens when you have a slightly down-tuned car and you hit it on a perfect launch is you get a 0 RPM drop. So I just ran basically what my dyno says I should run. He ran a 10.17 this time. I'm going to re-challenge him one more time, kind of show that, you know, I wasn't, my car's not that bad. I just happened to did a perfect launch, which hurt me. So here we go one more time. A little bit later, there we go. And here should be no problem keeping the car ahead. Now, um, he's running a bit slower this time. I'm not sure on purpose or not, but certainly I ran past him by quite a margin. I even slowed down. Um, I'll give him another chance to. I have a feeling he got a 0 RPM drop that time because that's what it looks like. Anyway, the RP's not bad. And here comes another challenge. I don't know if he's swapping or not. I'm just going to go ahead and give him this race so I can move on to my next brand. Again, 0 RPM drop will hurt me. And he's going to pull away right around here and then keep on going because I'm running out of steam here. So a little bit slower than dyno that time, and he did a little bit around dyno, I would suspect, for his car. So anyhow, 1LE, pretty good car for the purpose of live. So here we have the Dodge. Dodge, I decided to use the ACR Extreme Aero because that's the main Dodge car I have in Tier 5 that's actually built. This is a huge dyno buster car, as many people actually have found out to their dismay, losing money to it in live racing. However, many of the people that use this car doesn't drive it in a way that prevents it from being bumped. So you see less and less of these actually active in live. Most of them have been bumped to hell and cannot compete anymore, and the owners basically gave up on them. I have not killed this car. Well, I should say I have killed this car in the past doing a video, and I have slowly but surely uh, gotten the average runtime of it back down to a point where it is once again in a lobby that it can actually be competitive in. Doesn't mean it's going to win, but at least I have a good chance here. Now, again, with these cars, with the down tune, you don't want to do a perfect launch. You want to avoid that a little bit. A little bit early is okay. That gives it a nice start. So here in 6, I'm pulling past them. I'm going to slow back down a little bit. So I think I'm still bumped here because that is a pretty fast run. Um, I have to check my dyno at some point. Oh, here comes another shot. There's a possibility that the P1 GTR player who is running win-loss ratio is looking for a loss from me, or they just want to rematch me because it was a close run. Now, I'm going to run again to see if I can at least catch up to him and then slow back down here. And let's see what he runs. I think he's going to run around the same time. Yep. Now, I don't want to kill my car again. I'm going to go ahead and move on. But the Viper ACR is a well-known dyno buster. Ferraris. Now, Ferraris, I started off with that 812 back there. I couldn't find anybody to race me. I got stuck in a lobby, so I switched to the FXK. This brand, first of all, it's easy to build these cars, and almost every Ferrari in the game is pretty competitive in live. I haven't found one I find to be truly useless yet, although a few comes close. Lipstick Ferrari from the Ferrari event is one of the worst out of the brand, among others. So 599 GTO is nothing to write home about. Neither is the 488 Spyder, but GFXXK and some of the other ones are actually phenomenal in live racing, both in the fact that they beat dyno easily with tuning and the fact that they're relatively easy to build for fusions as long as you're willing to continuously buy and strip F12s. So here, the FXXK did at 8.9. The lobby actually is around 9.3. So as you can see, runs well under dyno and is able to win. Now, this car, of course, can also be bumped if I keep pushing it. So something to keep in mind as you drive it. Okay, now we're up to Ford. Ford has basically the 3030 and the Ford GT, and the Heritage Edition is another one. This Ford GT doesn't get a lot of love from newer players, but it is a good car. It is at one time quite common in 10 to 12-second lobbies. Most of the guys that drove it run some kind of down tune to allow the car to beat dyno, and therefore it was a competitive car in those lobbies. I think I'm locked into a lobby here. I'm going to try to see if I can challenge somebody. I don't see the back arrow, therefore this is not going to connect. Yep, fail. Okay, and nobody else is in the lobby. This isn't good. Sometimes if I go to the gas screen and come back, people start popping in. Sometimes they just need to leave the lobby and come back. So we're going to leave lobby, go back in, and hope that it changes. Now remember, if there are multiple lobbies of people around, you may switch lobby and find people that you could actually race with. Here we go. We swap to a different lobby. Doesn't mean this is a faster lobby. It could still be in the same bracket. It's just a matter of having a new lobby to be in. Notice Daddy 209 also moved over. Okay, let's see. One Raider fan for life here. Let me see if he'll race me. There is a back arrow, so he could accept if he choose to, but doesn't seem like that's going to happen. I'm going to go back, find a new guy. Let's see. Here we go. Hell with a, well, look, that's a Veneno um, Lamborghini. Lamborghinis are generally good cars too, so this should be an interesting race. And I know that that particular car, the Veneno, um, although not easy to tune necessarily to beat Dyno by a substantial amount, certainly can be driven well to beat Dyno by some. So this could be a tough race for me. But knowing my Ford is doing pretty good under Dyno, I am still confident that I can get the job done. Slow down slightly at the end to not push my car too far beyond regular dyno amount. And there it is. It's actually only about a tenth faster than what it actually dynos, so that's not too bad. So there you go, the Ford GT. Viable and live and still good. All right, Hennessy. This is an interesting car. This car either does not beat dyno at all, or if you run the setup and tune that I'm running, you beat dyno by a bunch. Now, notice it's in the same lobby that the Ford GT was just in, so it dynos around the same time, but unlike the Ford GT, which can beat the dyno by about, let's say, 2/3 this car can beat dyno by a huge amount, which means you need to drive it a lot more carefully if you plan to use it this way, because if you actually run what it really could run, you're going to get bumped. Because the game tracks what you actually run in your times, what you diagnose is important initially to get into a lobby, but what you actually run will determine which lobby you stay in for the long term. And here I kind of ran the car out in a gear, not the final gear, just to slow it down. Even then, I am breaking out of the lobby by quite a decent amount. So much like the Ford GT, I'm running under what dyno is with that car. All right, Honda. Now, I don't have a Tier 5 Honda other than the pink boy here, or the pink girl here, I should say. But the S2K is a great car. It's the Fast and Furious car that you had to buy. Um, Not the easiest to tune to beat dyno, but once you get the hang of it, you could. This car is a little tricky though. The way I have it tuned takes advantage of the fact that you have to kind of push this car near the end of a run as hard as you can on nitrous or you lose time. So if I use nitrous quickly, as in second gear or third gear, I actually, whoops, I kind of screwed that up there. Um, Even in fifth is where you want it. Fifth and sixth is kind of where you want to use nitrous. Now, if nitrous runs out though, you slow down really quickly and you could potentially lose. Now, you can beat dyno using that method. You may actually beat dyno more if you use nitrous later to kind of keep it on nitrous all the way through the line. So it's not as easy a car to set up to beat dyno. I have used a aggressive short duration nitrous along with a particular final drive ratio along with some grippier tire settings to force it to beat dyno using nitrous. Not as easy a down to as say some of the ones you can see with simply crossing grip with power and getting an evo drop. Those are more consistent. This one's a little trickier. I'm trying to get another race and it's not making it easy for me. Oh, here we go. Right, so S2K once again. Now, the Honda that everybody normally uses, obviously the Honda NSX and the LB NSX in Tier 4. Um, since I have a Tier 5, I prefer to use Tier 5. It's just the way I play. I like to get Tier 5 with Tier 5 opponents because you just get more money when you race with the Tier 5 cars, and it helps you build up your funds quicker than racing in the lower tiers. But here again, 9.2, 9.3, good RP, 1381. And this is not a elite car, so there's another 10% possible in there that would push it over 1400 if it was deleted. So good car, certainly competitive. Jaguar. Now Jaguar has the CX75, and then you have your F-Type SVJ. Was it SVR? I believe not SVJ. I'm confusing that with Lamborghini. So Jaguar has a few cars, but the best of the Jaguars is this one you see right before you. This car can run substantially under dyno without being fully built, without running really tons of stage sixes. And it's just a cool looking car. It's definitely a cool looking Jag. And here I'm just kind of looking around to see if I can get somebody to race. Now I could race the um, AMC here, but he's got win loss going and there's no back button, so looks like he might be iOS. It's not going to connect. Let's see, King Kazoo just got challenged. What about this guy? Now he's not a legendary crew member. He could accept me for a race though. Let's see what happens here. So interestingly with this Jag is you can't launch perfect, right? Because if you launch perfect with this kind of a tune, again, you're going to get a 0 RPM drop. You can't launch late either. It's actually slower when you launch late. You want to launch early like that, little bit early at 5,000. And that gives you the best run it can do. Now I'm slowing down here to get them to cut it close. Again, why do I always slow down? I slow down to prevent a lobby bump. The closer you run to your dyno and the opponent's dyno or the opponent's runtime, the more likely you're not going to get bumped out of the bracket. Again, you have to estimate the bracket to be somewhere around the 3/10th range. Um, Considering I'm looking at 10.5 cars, so 10.5 usually can go down to 10.2 range. There's a lobby somewhere in there. Now here what I did is I ran it a little different. I did a late launch just to show you the difference here. The car's going to run a little bit slower and it's a little tougher to stay ahead of the other car. Um, Again, it still is competitive, but certainly won't be as easy to run under. He ran a little faster. I ran a little faster. Again, the results the same. I beat him by a little bit. So the Jaguar CX, another great live racer. A Gara RS. Now, I made a post on Facebook about this car. It's set up to defeat Dyno in its current level of build. The upside to this is, of course, it beats Dyno. The downside of it is, of course, it beats Dyno by too much. And again, anytime it beats Dyno by too much, it risks getting bumped very quickly. And it's much harder to control, meaning let's say you know your car can do a second under dyno and you dyno at 10. That means you could run a 9, but you don't want to run a 9 because you get bumped. So what you really want to run is a 9.8. But how do you control it to run a 9.8? That's where a little bit of practice comes in. This guy's not going to connect either. So you go to your dyno shop and where you can do test runs, and then you test different shift patterns, holding the shift at a certain gear, not using nitrous early or using it late. Every little bit tweaks the time. You have to figure out the pattern that you're going to use in live, plus adjustments. Let's say you realize everybody's running 9.7 and you tested to run 9.8s. Now you got to adjust a little bit to run 9.69s. So you got to be able to get that down. And with a car like the Agera RS with a down tune like this, that's going to become very important. Because if you don't figure those points out and you just outright run the car, you're gonna bump the car. And you're gonna stop being able to use it very quickly. It's gonna get bumped out to a much faster lobby. Okay, let's see here. All right, so an early launch prevents a 0 RPM drop. And here I'm in fourth. I don't want to go into fifth. I'm actually slowing down. Ah, he's going to beat me. Don't slow down just a hair too much. Just a hair. Okay. Okay. So that was a 9.5 in a 9.8 lobby. So that's we're already pushing it here. If I keep doing this with this guy, I may get bumped out of this lobby. I will, however, take one more shot at it, and this time I'll slow down a little bit later, keeping it close, but try to at least beat him to the line this time. Early launch actually gets me a perfect launch. So early actually gets you a perfect. Perfect gets you a 0 RPM drop. Who knows what's going on? I'm slowing down, and I still beat him by quite a bit there, which means it's probably a 9 point. Oh, he ran a little bit slower. So I'm still close to my 9.5. Good RP, 13,000 money. Again, even if you have a car that should win, if you're trying to play it carefully, you may not win. But to me, that's part of the challenge. I don't mind doing that. Okay, Lamborghinis, lots of good cars, but one of the best and easiest to use for the average guy is the LB Aventador. Doesn't require any special tuning. Build it, fusion it, and just drive it a certain way, and you will automatically beat Dyno and be competitive. So it's a good car. Now, launching late's the key. If you launch right dead on perfect, you get wheel spin and a needle hang where you can't shift out of the gears. You want to launch a little bit late, then it just kind of shift to fifth, nitrous, and off you go. And you don't have to even shift into sixth. You can even slow down a little. If you're ahead of the guy, there's no reason to go crazy. But this car again beats Dyno naturally and could get bumped over time because you beat Dyno by too much too often. Where you lobby it and how you run it will affect how long this car can be efficient for you. But Lamborghinis, plenty of good cars, few options, including the LB Aventador. Lykan Hypersport. Lykan has two cars, but I actually prefer the Hypersport over the other one, which is the Fenrir, mainly because the Hypersport can be tuned to beat Dyno and be competitive, and the Fenrir can be tuned but beats Dyno by a lot less of a margin, and therefore is harder to win with consistently over time. Plus, it's easier to bump. I don't know why. So I played with the Fenrir. I played with the Hypersport. I definitely prefer the Hypersport over it. Both cars are ridiculously hard to build. Fortunately, the Hypersport's been PC car more than once, so I finally got it built up. Let's see if I can win this one without any headaches. Now he's pulling ahead, so this is going to be a close race. Although I will start pulling on him at the end because this car does have a decent top end. Not great, but decent. Certainly against that particular car, I was able to eke out a win. Not by much. Okay, so the Hypersport also bumps up easily, so I don't even know if this car is bumped or not. I haven't checked the original dyno, but I do know that it is currently usable as it's set. So we reached Mclaren M's. McLaren is a great brand, plenty of great cars, one of the best, in my opinion, for the average guy who just wants to play for free, is the Warsteiner for 570 VX. Great car all around. Easy to max, easy to use, easy to tune for live racing, for various type of events, and Tempest. So this is an all-around great McLaren, one of the easier ones to own and use. And with just a bit of adjustment, is quite competitive in live racing. So here, the purple people eater is going to take on a Warsteiner 720S. In real life, of course, the Warsteiner 720 is going to eat it alive, but this is CSR2 where all reality is suspended. So off we go. As you can see, I'm starting to pull ahead. However, don't underestimate the 720S. It gets a hell of a top end near the end of the track. So that car could have very well caught me and passed me at the end, although in this case it did not. For a 4 star, it makes pretty decent RP, and as long as you're over 1,000 Evo, again, 570 VX, one of the best McLarens. Mazda. Now, I think I should have put Mazda before McLaren, so I kind of messed up there. But anyway, Mazda here has no tier 5. Okay, you're stuck with just the two RX-7s. One is the uh, original RX-7 Rocket Bunny, 5 star, and then you have the newer Purple Star Rocket Bunny that just came from the Easter event. So here I'm going to take my Rocket Bunny and take it up against one of the newest additions to the game, the 911 Carrera 4S Cabriolet, which in itself is a good tier 4 car. However, the Rocket Bunny RX-7 is also a very good live racing car because it's easy to have it set up to outrun Dyno and therefore making it one of the more competitive cars in Tier 4. Doesn't mean that it's going to win everything forever, but as long as you drive it carefully and you have the car set up properly, it should be relatively competitive. Now, this is a 12.5, 12.6 range. Again, the problem here is you make less money than a tier 5 versus tier 5, but the RP is only marginally lower, about 100. It's not too bad. So that was the regular Rocket Bunny, and we certainly can't move on without now going back and picking up the Easter Rocket Bunny. Come on, let's click on that. This is a brand new Rocket Bunny, 5 star Purple Star, the Easter reward. And it too can be tuned to beat Dino by a bit, but much harder to do than the regular Rocket Bunny. So between the two, I would say the regular Rocket Bunny is easier to set up, easier to win with in live. Although obviously with Purple Stars, this Easter event Rocket Bunny, if you win a race with it, would be better. Okay, so I was trying to challenge that one guy, but this guy challenged me, so it's perfect. Oh, he's got a pink Nissan Silvia Rocket Bunny. That's a color I kind of like, warrior pink. Reminds me of the Yashio factory cars. They all ran the warrior pink kind of colors, and they were quite popular in the drifting circuits. But anyway, I digress. So Easter car versus S15 Silvia, which is also a very competitive car in Tier 4. But I have faith my Rocket Bunny um, RX-7 will take out the Rocket Bunny Sylvia, and it did. That's not to say this particular Rocket Bunny is all that highly competitive. I was able to beat him, but obviously that was still a pretty tight race. RP is a little better, same low money, but both Rocket Bunny RX-7s are perfectly viable in live. Okay, Mercedes. Everybody who's had the AMG GTR as a whatchamacallit, as a PC car or a Prestige Cup. Is it Prestige Cup or is it Milestone? I can't remember what this car was. I think it was a Prestige Cup car. In any case, this car is a dyno buster, and this car is in the same lobby as some of my other setups, but in the 10-second lobby, around between 10 to 9.8 lobby, it's quite the beast. And it, in fact, is still the beast when you get it closer to max, but it's more easily bumped as its PP goes up. The Halloween version with the purple stars work the same way, so both are very effective as live racers as long as you're willing to sacrifice a few hundred Evo to get that down tune working right. Um, they're extremely competitive, but they don't make the best RP because of losing almost 600 Evo points when you tune it the way I have it tuned. But 1311 is not terrible. And the purple star will probably make around 1360 or to 80. Okay, Nissan GTR. Now, Nissan only has one tier 5, and that's the Fast and Furious one. I have it, but I don't like using it. This Nissan GTR is, in fact, the new player's friend. Uh, this GTR I've used quite extensively when I was newer to win plenty of live races in the slower lobbies. The thing about the GTR is that its nemesis is actually a well-tuned Dodge Viper, because a lot of the Vipers can also be dyno by quite a substantial amount. However, it is competitive against pretty much most other cars in its own class, including other GTRs. Depending on how you have it tuned in the fusions, um, you could potentially win most of the races. In fact, this is one of the more competitive cars in my mind for a newer player to use. Certainly, you want the star version, not just the no star version, but it's a good car and you should not ignore it. Not only that, it's also good for Tempest. So Tempest 1 and 2, the GTR can still hold its own. Mostly Tempest 1 is better though. I mean, beating Victor and also Tempest 1, I think GTR is definitely a great choice. But in live, as you can see, this car is very easy to use. It shoots out of the hole really fast, but then it gets stuck kind of cruising. As long as the other guy doesn't catch you, you'll win. In this setting, though, because of the lower PP point, the RP, even with the 1000 Evo, isn't that great. So that's the downside. But if you're a newer and this is what you got, not a bad choice to use. Now, the Porsche everyone likes to go to is the 918. But Porsches in this game are all pretty competitive, even the ones you don't think may be all that competitive, including the 911R. The 911R actually can do pretty well. Now, notice the Evo on it isn't that great, but it's not a terrible car, and it can be tuned to beat dyno like many of the other Porsches. The problem with Porsches, of course, is you got to pick and choose which ones you build. Um, this one got built because it was PC Cup car at some point, I think. That's why I ended up building it. But otherwise, the 918 is still the better choice. But if you have the 911R, it's not totally worthless in that it can be used once you build it and tune it for live racing. It's just a little bit low on the Evo points, which will hurt its overall RP generation. But it's a winner, and it's a pretty good winner. There it is. And did a 9.6. I think the dyno on this is somewhere in the 9.8 to 9.9 range. Again, the RP is a little bit lower, but it's not terrible. 1263 without any wildcard boost. So there is a winnable Porsche. Okay, Subaru. Rocket Bunny BRZ. I have it tweaked again to just be competitive. Now, I don't like tier 3 cars. One, because in tier 3 you make very little money. Two, they're just enough. For tier 3, I almost just want to get a Max Vorstein or Porsche and just run in the top end of the lobby and not worry about it. Uh, the other lobbies, the slower lobbies in tier 3, it's a hit or miss when it comes to the kind of opponents you'll face. Some cars are just going to outrun you, even if you have a good tune. So tier 3 can actually be quite difficult to win in unless you really have a good car and you know what you're doing with the tuning. But even then, the lack of RP and the lack of money makes it not as a priority for me to be in this lobby. I rarely ever come into tier 3, tier 2s for live racing for that reason. So right there, the Subaru Rocket Bunny is still competitive. I had to tune it down low, so I lost about 200 Evo. That means it makes barely 675 RP on that run. That really sucks. So this is not a car I would be using for actual purpose of making points because 695 is just simply too low. Going to VW, we now are we're looking at the Golf GTI Rocket Bunny. This actually is a pretty good car. One great thing about it is that it already has over 1,000 Evo. The problem, of course, is that the PP is relatively low. So even with over 1,000 Evo, I don't expect a huge amount of RP from it, probably around 1,000. But it's also a very good car that seems highly competitive in live, able to um, run strongly against other opponents. including what is very popular right now, which is that 250 GTO. I see them all over tier 2, tier 1, and tier, well, mostly tier 2 and 1 lobbies. They're just not fast enough usually to end up with a lot of the higher end tier 3s. And they do run under dyno. That's probably why a lot of people use them. But here, the GTI easily beat that particular car. I'm going to go ahead and look for another opponent just to prove to you this is not a fluke. Um, oh, guess what? My first run was a 9.5, so it bumped me to a different lobby. I'm pretty sure this is not the one I was just in. That kind of brings up a topic I just want to quickly go over, which is when you first bring a car you set up to live for the first time, what you run in those first few runs determines where the computer sits you ultimately lobby wise. So, yeah, your dyno says you run 9.9, but you run into a lobby and immediately does 9.5. Guess what? You're now going to get moved to the 9.5 lobby. So, regardless of your dyno, you will be locked into a faster lobby due to your average runtime being 9.5 rather than 9.9. So, it kind of makes sense to run it slower if possible when you first start racing in a new lobby with a new car. Keeping the races close, keep your car running as slow as possible for the given situation. It will set you in a slower lobby and it'll allow you to be competitive for much longer. So here, 9.7, this car is definitely faster than the last car. So I got bumped up a little bit. I probably continue to get bumped up if I keep running 9.5s. So I'm going to let it go for now. I'm going to figure out some test runs with this car. All right. So those were mostly milestones and PC cars. Here we're starting to look at purple star cars that are won through events or are bought, right? The Bugatti Chiron Sport is a great car. I have actually put over 1,000 miles on this car down tuned. What does that mean? Well, that means it has been bumped a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do a run. I want to show you what happens when your car is no longer running in the lobby that it's supposed to be running in. Your opponent starts to be a lot quicker, even as compared to your ultimate tune, and that makes it difficult for you to not run more and more under dyno. And the more you do it, the further the car gets bumped. So here my car actually dynos around a 9.9. But guess what? I got to stay in front of this guy to win, right? So no matter what I do, I'm not going to run my dyno. Let's see what I actually run here. 9.2. So I am almost 7/10 faster than what my car dynos. The opponent ran a 9.4. So even if I was in my normal lobby, he is well beyond the bracket. So what I know is I am at least one bracket up from where my car actually would be dyno wise, and that's not really surprising. I know I bumped the car a little bit with the past racing. So what happens when you get bumped like this? Well, one thing you can do is you could try to retune the car to its normal dyno. Okay, so that was a 1085 dyno. I had to run a 9.2 to win, 9.4 at least to win. So that's not so good. So if I put my car back to, say, where it really could run, um, which will be a lot faster, here, let's move it back to where it actually could be. It's more like an 8.7 to 8.6 range. See, 8.69, okay? So it really dynos around 8.6. If I take this car back out to live, I could get a feel for just how much I'm bumped by or if I'm bumped at all. Because if you're bumped by, say, 3/10, that means most of your opponents in that lobby should dyno around 8.3 to 8.4 and they would crush you. Oh, but here we go. I found some bots. Now, if you are either bumped or you're trying to set a lobby time with a new car and you found a bot, race it. Here's why. Bots run almost a second slower than what the lobby usually runs, giving me the ability to kind of run like crap and much slower than normal and still beat the bot at the end there. I don't have to beat him by much, just a little bit. So I just ran 11.7 on an 8.7 dyno. Does this count? Well, from my experience, every win you do counts. Actually, every run you do counts. So if your average gets dropped down as you run the car in the slower lobbies, or I shouldn't say slower lobby, in the faster lobbies, but with the bots, it can actually bump you back down. So I left that lobby. I'm going to jump back now to live again. And here we should get a different lobby. A different lobby doesn't mean you're necessarily in a slower bracket, but one way to find out where you really are would be to run somebody, right? Find somebody to race and race them. Let's see, I'll find somebody who's not likely to beat Dino, something like this car. Because you want a car that's in that lobby that's likely to run the actual lobby time. This will give you a better feel for whether you're bumped or not. All right, he's not accepting. I don't think he's going to accept. Okay, we'll find someone else. Now, some of these cars in this lobby definitely could outrun its dyno, so I'm not too keen on racing those yet. Now, Dr. Phil Liabitz 69 is in a Zonda. If I can get him to race me, it'll be great. That's another car that don't usually run too much under dyno. Well, here it's a regular Chiron Sport. I mean, not Sport, the regular Chiron. Will he race me? He's a win-loss guy. He may not want to race me. Doesn't look like it's connecting anyway. Race refused. Okay, no problem. Hmm. Let's jump in and out of lobby again. Here's the problem with racing opponents and trying to find opponents to race. Okay, I'm back in that other lobby, so I found more bots. Oh, all right. This time I got to race the Sesto Elemento. Now, I'm not looking to win this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to race this guy just to see where I am lobby-wise. My goal here is to run slow enough that I won't be dyno, and hopefully we'll see how much the margin of error is right now between what I dyno and what my opponents run. So I have no problem with him winning. I just want to make sure to know where my lobby is. I see what he ran. 8.5. So obviously I'm on an 8.6 dyno. 8.5 is not out of the range. So that's not a too bad a thing. It could be that I'm not as bumped up as I'm fearing here, which is good. So I'm not going to do more at this point. I'll go and do some more slow runs down the line, reset the car, and go from there. Okay, now 1970 Charger RT. Some of you just won this from the latest event. So you might be thinking, hey, is this car any good? Well, it's okay. It's not great in live. It's kind of hard to tune to even beat Dyno. It is not a bad car. It's pretty fast if you ever get all the stage sixes. So, and it is the poster child car for Fast and Furious. The problem is, of course, ultimately, cars that don't win in live ends up being dust collectors in most people's garages. So I've tweaked this car a little bit. It could win against some opponents, but it requires a particular driving style, and I can't screw it up or I don't run under dyno, and therefore I don't win. Let's see if we can get somebody to race here and see what happens. All right, LB Aventador. This is going to be rough because these cars can really run substantially under dyno. So I know the Charger RT could run under dyno a bit, but the margin's sometimes not even as good as the LB Aventador naturally, what it naturally can do under dyno. So let's see what happens here. Kind of a late launch car. 4, 5. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't have shifted into 6. I forgot. Okay, well, that killed my time a little bit there, and he beat me. That was a mistake. 9.4s. Yeah, I'm not even sure I could beat that time even if I did drive it properly. So that's a pretty fast car. So I'm in the 9.78 lobby probably, and that guy's running 9.4s. It's a little bit tricky here. Now the ZR1 usually doesn't beat Dino by as much, so I know that this one I have more of a chance and may be able to actually beat the opponent. So let's try it out. A little bit slow on the other end to start. Here we go. Late launch, not late, perfect. 3, 4, nitrous. And I'm going to stay in 5th actually, because it holds that, and the drop off is a little bit less at the end. Let's see what I ran and what the opponent ran. 9.57, 9.7. Okay. Now, 9.57 wouldn't have beaten that LB Aventador earlier, so that thing was definitely quick. Didn't Something happened there? I might have accepted too quick. Um, let's see if he still wants to race or not. Another shot. I guess not. Oh, there it is. All right. World Elite. He's a swapper. He has the swap symbol. Um, I have no problem. Let's take a race. I may just forfeit this run and then move on. Doesn't hurt for me to run a little bit slower anyway. Okay, so here we go. Go to 4th. That'll slow the car down right away. And once you're off nitrous, this car doesn't really accelerate, so you're not going to make a very good time. Okay, and so there's that. Take my 200 some RP points. So that was the Charger RT. Again, usable, but not really, really good. Here's another top reward car. This is the 918 Spyder Martini Racing. Unlike the regular 918, this one's a little bit different in the way it operates. However, it is a decent car, and again, if you use nitrous right, it can be pretty competitive. However, I'm racing against a RWB, which actually is quite the killer in live if you tune it right. So this could be quite a rough race. Oh, I screwed up a little bit on that one. Hit nitrous way too early. Yeah, I'm done. Definitely not winning that. Okay, so I'm going to re-challenge this guy because that was my screw up. It's not the car's fault. I know I can beat that time later. Let's take another shot at that RWB. The Rotana. All right, this time I'm going to use nitrous later. I'm going to try to launch better. Shift. Going to use nitrous in 4th. And use the power of the nitrous to push me through. So there, ran a little better. Definitely faster than that 8.8. Now it's an 8.5 against his 8.705. So very decent RP there since this is a pretty well upgraded Purple Star car. So the 918 Martini is not completely worthless in live, but it's not a hugely competitive car. What about the Rotana we just raced earlier? Well, this thing is quite the beast in live. This is one of the better, I think, purchased cars that you can get. And certainly it's actually in similar lobby, if not the same lobby as the 918 was in, but it can run right around the same time, if not better. So certainly a pretty competitive car. Let's see. He's iOS. It's probably not going to connect. Let's see what we can find that's not iOS or swapping. He says swap, but you know what? Maybe he'll race me. Typhoon swaps. Refused. Okay, he only wants to swap. That's fine. Let's see. Georgia and Georgia's probably racing each other because it's probably the same guy's account, so I'm not going to mess with them. Hmm. Who can we race? Well, oh, Hennessy. Here's Quinton Brothers Camaro. He has one loss on his name too. Oh, those two other guys are busy now. I guess Quinton Camaro it is. So Starboy one loss. Now Quinton Camaro is much like the HS Customs and can be quite difficult to beat in live depending on how they have it tuned. We'll find out in a second. Now the Rotana has a bit of a top end there. It's actually pretty good on the top end and can pull past a lot of cars. So here did an 8.593. Oh, I got my 10 silver keys and I beat the Quinton car. Nice RP, standard amount of money from tier 5. All right. So what was the point of all this exercise? The point is live racing is not as hard and as limited as some people make it out to be. Many, many cars are viable in live. And we're not just talking about tier 5 cars. The A bars in tier 1 is a monster. And so is the Civic, Honda Civic hatch, Angel Civic, also a very good car. And here, many of the Ferraris, many of the various brands in the game have multiple cars that are quite viable in live. Part of the fun is actually kind of discovering what works for yourself, taking it to live, and winning. So I hope I've inspired you to try more cars and go out there and try to win in live with more variety of cars. There's no wrong way to do live racing, whether you swap or whether you actually try to do heads up. But it's always satisfying to know you have set up and tuned the car to actually beat people in live. And none of these other events on the map that I just pointed at will ever beat live when it comes to pure RP generation. Okay, let me know what you think. I am going to sign off here. Um, Thank you for watching the video. Please subscribe if you like these kind of videos, and I'll catch you next time with another CSR2 video.